Hello, welcome friends. Good to have you here for part 2 of my pop-up training. This is very impromptu, last minute, 3 steps to attracting clients you love. As I mentioned yesterday, this is something that came to me on Monday because I just had some really powerful conversations with clients and was really appreciating the people that I work with. And I wanted to share with you ways that you as well can bring in clients that you really love to work with. So let me make sure that I can see what's happening here and see your comments. So come on in, let me know you're here. Whether you're live or on the replay, love to have some company while I'm here. Love to hear your feedback, your comments, your thoughts as I go through this. And of course, if there are any issues at all, please let me know because I'm not the most tech savvy person in the world, but I am really happy to have you here. Today's focus in part 2 is inviting the right people in to have effective conversations. So as I mentioned, this whole training, what it's all about is 3 steps to attracting clients you love. And if you haven't guessed it yet, this is about creating rapport and building strong relationships with people in 3 ways: through outreach, connection, and conversations. As this is happening, potential clients or people who may refer you, right? If you were here yesterday, we talked about the different people that we want to bring into our sphere. These people are all deciding if they like and trust you. And at the same time, you're doing the same thing. So that said, right, we're talking about attracting clients that we love. On the opposite side of that, never ever feel like you have to take on a client. If you get warning signs that someone's going to be pretty tough to work with, or they're going to be fighting you on your fees, or frankly, you just don't, when you're with them, you're not feeling the right energy, you just may not like them. Just go ahead, say no early on. Don't get wrapped up into that. By saying no, you are opening space up for the right person or the right clients to come to you, and you're really respecting yourself. So I just want to mention that as an aside to keep in mind. So let's get back into logistics and tactics. Yesterday, I mentioned that this training is particularly suited for service-based businesses where the investment or the fees may be significant, where that know, like, and trust factor is so important. So if that sounds like you are in the right place. And that doesn't mean that you won't find value if you're in a different type of service or sell products. So stick around and just see what resonates with you. Now, the topic I covered yesterday, just in a quick recap, was all about creating that list of the people who you'd like to bring into your business, into your world. So I want to share my screen real briefly just to do a quick recap on those. So if you didn't see yesterday's recording, please feel free to go back. It's still there. You can go ahead and go through it. It will be there. But here's what we talked about. We talked about creating a really effective outreach list, a list of people that we want to work with, that we know that, or we have a pretty good idea that would be amazing clients. So I talked about approaching past clients and customers, your biggest fans, past prospect. Boy, I cannot speak today. Past prospects. Try saying that 3 times fast. So these are people that you've spoken with in the past that you really enjoyed the conversation, but for one reason or another, they did not engage you. The third category we talked about were simply people or businesses that you know you'd love to work with. You want to have those on the list. The fourth was people who already work with your ideal clients, right? These are people who could refer business to you, and likewise, you can be referring back to them. And then we also talked about groups, exploring groups, visiting different groups that where your ideal client hangs out, and gave a few suggestions here for associations, networking group, community, volunteering. So that is all in there to think about as a recap. So if you haven't done your list yet, go ahead and focus on these areas and creating your outreach list. And then let's go back to, stop sharing here, the topic of today, because today I want to talk about the actual outreach to these people on your list. Now, to some people, this process can be entirely intuitive and there's no problem just sitting down for them, sending messages. It's very natural to them, or making phone calls, whatever the outreach looks like, however they decide to move forward with their outreach marketing. But I have found that for more people than not, this process does not come intuitively to them, or they may have a general idea, but could use some help in improving their messaging or coming up with new ideas for messaging when it comes to reaching out to these ideal clients, with the ultimate goal of having a conversation with them. That's really what this comes down to. So here's some outreach specifics. When you're reaching out to people, where do you do it, right? You'll want to do it on the platform that makes the most sense for both you and the potential client or the potential referral partner. So if you've had conversations before, you'll want to go back to those areas or those platforms where you communicated before. Could be email, could be Facebook Messenger, could be LinkedIn, could be text messaging, whatever that platform is that makes most sense. For some people, it's making phone calls. I personally prefer email because I like to have that tracking mechanism. I like to be able to go back, see messages. I like that Google nudges me, reminds me in a few days if I haven't heard back from some people. So whatever seems most appropriate for you. Now I want to talk about the invitation to a conversation. And I'm going to share my screen here again and show you some templates that I'll be walking through. And if anyone would like this template, simply just send me a direct message and I'll send it to you. But here's the process when it comes to sample invitations for conversations. It all comes down to basically a three-part process. It's pretty simple. Number one, the first part, you are always going to want to tailor the message to the individual. Right? You're not mass mailing people. You're not coming up with one message that's all cut and paste. So you want to start with a point of connection. Number two, you want to state the intention of the message, including that you'll be sharing about your work. And number three, our entire goal of this is to invite people, the right people, into a conversation. All right, so I've got some examples here, some template language. Of course, you're going to want to make this your own. I've got 3 different examples here that I'll walk through and I'll share some examples with us. But I really encourage you, as you're thinking about this, use your own language. As you're writing things, pretend you're just speaking things out loud. That will come most naturally to you. But here are some sample templates that might be helpful for you. So the check-in message. This is ideal for when you're reaching out to past clients or past prospects. And it has those 3 elements that I mentioned. Number one, tailoring the message, right? I was just thinking of you and wanted to check in and see how you were doing. Last time we spoke or ran into each other or connected together, a recap you were working on, you had a goal of, you intended to, whatever that is with these past prospects or clients, you were working on something and I want to know what happened, right? So I'd love to reconnect and hear how that went, how it's going and what you're up to now, right? So that we're getting into the intention of the message. And then also sharing with them. I also have some new services or packages or offerings, whatever that might be, that provide a result to my clients. You'll want to tailor that to your business that I'd like to share with you and would appreciate your feedback on them. Right? So you're telling people in advance that as part of this conversation, you want to catch up with them, you really care, and you're also going to be sharing about your work. Right? So it's not a surprise when you're bringing that up during the conversation, right? So there's your intention right there in the middle. And then finally, the invitation to a conversation might sound something like, may we schedule a time in the next week or so to meet and catch up? If so, let me know of a couple of options that might work for you. Or if you have an online scheduler, you can share that with them. But just make sure that you really emphasize this is for the purpose of you finding a day and time that works best for you, right? It's for their convenience, not yours. So there are some options there when you're reaching out to past clients, past prospects. Now, if you're making an initial connection message, so this is with that, typically with that category of people you'd love to work with that perhaps you haven't spoken with or you haven't had a connection conversation with before. Again, well, they're starting out with wanting to tailor the message to them, creating a point of connection. So it might be something like, it was wonderful meeting you through, or being connected by whomever that might be. I see we have mutual shared interests, whatever that might be that you see that you have in common. Or maybe you looked at their website or their LinkedIn page and I was really impressed by whatever that is, right? So you're tailoring it to them. And then again, that intention, love to have the opportunity to connect and learn more about you and your, whatever that might be, your business, whatever that situation is related to your work, if it's appropriate. And then again, sharing that you want to share about your business during this conversation. And you may also want to offer them a link to your website, your Facebook page, any materials, flyers, something about your work if you'd like to share that they can explore a little bit more. And then, of course, again, the invitation to the conversation. So I was thinking about some people who were here yesterday in the live or commenting later and wanted to share an example of tailoring this to the individual. And I was thinking here specifically of Brandon. Brandon, you were in here. Brandon does amazing website design. And he also has a special genius in making sure that websites are accessible to people with disabilities, right? So Brandon, I know, is also a big networker. So his connection message might state something like, it was wonderful meeting you at when I was visiting a BNI group, particular BNI group. I looked into your materials or your website, and I was really impressed by the services that you provide in such and such a field. Love the opportunity to connect and talk more about your business. And then he would also say something like, I'd also like to share about my work helping people with their website design, and specifically with making sure that their websites are accessible to people with disabilities. This is a really important aspect that a lot of businesses don't think about. And I'd love to share that with you, right? So whatever wording Brandon would use, but he'd talk about his work there and share that the intention during the conversation is to talk about that work, right? So there's an example using that initial connection message template. Another category of people we talked about, I think this was the fourth category, was people who already work with clients with whom you'd like to work, right? You have this mutual business sphere. So they already have clients that you'd love to work with. And so it would be terrific if you got together, learned about each other's businesses. They could refer business to you. You could refer business to them. So a template for this might sound something like, again, it was wonderful meeting you, connecting with you by whatever that mutual connection was. I see that we both work with a particular type of client. I'm always looking for good people in their work field to provide as valuable resources to my clients, and would love to meet with you to learn more about you and your work, right? So you're saying, I really appreciate what you do. I know we work with similar clients. Let's connect. And then continuing, I'd also like to share with you about my business and how I support this mutual client type. And then again, providing a website or other information as well. These typically people are really open to these conversations, these types of conversations. And in thinking of an example, I was thinking of Susan, who was on here yesterday, who is an amazing interior decorator. She just has such a gift for creating magical spaces within people's homes. So for Susan, great mutual business sphere people would be, say, general contractors or architects or real estate people. So say she wanted to connect with an architect. She'd say something like, it was wonderful meeting you through, when I was having dinner with Connie and we met and I learned more about your business. I see that we both work with, and here's where the mutual type of clients are. So maybe it's new homeowners I know Susan likes to work in Bend, Oregon. So I see that we both work with these new homeowners. I'm always looking for great architects. My clients are often looking for help in this area to provide us valuable resources. Would love to meet you, learn more about what you do. And I'd also like to share with you about my interior decorating services. Here, I also support new homeowners in Bend, Oregon, or whatever that mutual connection is. And here's my website. Susan has a great website that's got all kinds of examples of the work that she does as a preview, and then requesting the conversation. So that's just a quick review of different outreach messages that you can use in making and starting and encouraging people to have those conversations with you. And again, as I mentioned, if you'd like any of those templates, just private message me and I'll send those to you. So keep those in mind. If you have any questions, you can reach out anytime, but I have found these to be most effective in reaching out to people and garnering conversations. Before we wrap up, I also would like to share some general guidelines for this. It's basically called outreach marketing. So for this business development time, I encourage my clients to spend about an hour a day on this. Within an hour, you can typically tailor 5 to 10 messages. It will get faster the more that you do this. But have a goal of setting up or having at least one conversation per day, right? So if you're doing this kind of outreach, it's very likely that you'll fill your schedule pretty quickly. And between this outreach and these conversations, this can result in a couple of hours a day of business development. So if you're newer in business, you'll want to really make sure you get that time, if not more time in for doing this. If you're more established with a pretty steady flow of clients, this activity doesn't need to be as extensive, but it does still need to happen. You never want to take your foot completely off the gas when it comes to your marketing and finding clients that you'd love to work with. A couple of other thoughts I wanted to mention on outreach. As you're doing this, you'll want to track this outreach and the responses. So whether you use a CRM or an Excel spreadsheet or a yellow pad of paper, as we talked about yesterday, make sure you keep track of things. Also, don't take it personally if someone doesn't get back with you. How many times have you received email messages and thought to yourself, oh yeah, I definitely want to get back to that person. And then before you know it, that email message is buried in the whole slew of messages that we get, and people forget. So there's always an opportunity to give them a little nudge, remind them, send it again. But don't take it personally if somebody doesn't get back with you. In my experience, I think usually, especially working with this outreach list, that you've worked hard to make sure it's focused on people that you think you'd really love to work with or connect with. The majority of people will respond to your message. So really focus on those. And then to wrap up, I have a next step that I encourage you to take today while you're thinking about this, whether you're watching this live or watching the replay. I'd like to invite you to reach out to at least 3 people. So from your outreach list, 3 top people that you really love to work with. And after you've done that, just post in the comments, let me know that you've done this. It really will help encourage others to do so as well. And then come back tomorrow, again, whether live at 10:30 Eastern or in the replay, where I'm going to be sharing tips for conducting this actual conversation that comes out of this outreach. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a great day. Enjoy the outreach. Enjoy the responses that come through. And I'll look forward to seeing you later.